Hello, everyone, and welcome into another edition of the BoobergLawCast. My name is Jay McFarland. As always, we have attorney Chris Booberg joining us. Chris, thanks for joining us one more time.
Thanks for being here, and thanks for helping me out. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and I have to tell you, I'm really excited about today's topic because when you said you wanted to talk about it, I realized how ignorant I am and that I'm just going on with my life not knowing anything about car insurance whatsoever, nothing.
And most people are in the exact same boat. They maybe know what their deductible is, but they have no idea how much insurance coverage they have. And so I want to take this opportunity to explain some ins and outs and give some people some recommendations about why it's important to know more about your car insurance than you probably do.
Yeah, I love that. So that's what we're going to talk about on this edition of the BoobergLawCast. What do you need to know about car insurance and why? And the first question you have on here, Chris, is why is my lawyer asking me about car insurance? Explain that a little bit.
Well, when people come in, they know that there's another person at fault usually. And maybe the police officer has given them some information on the exchange of information form. They have a policy number or maybe a company for that other person. But I need to know if they have insurance too, and it's because of the various types of insurance. There is insurance when you have car insurance, you are covered from what other people do, in addition to covering yourself from whatever mistakes you might make. So that's why it's important for me to know from the beginning whether the people have car insurance, and then it's a matter of how much car insurance they have, and that's something that we're going to explore further. But that's why we want to know. People always look at me like, why do you need to know about my insurance? I'm not at fault. But you're going to come to understand that there's three different types of coverage, and two of the types of coverage are there to protect you.
All right. So I see. So if I'm assuming if I'm in a car accident, I know for a fact the other guy's at fault. He's even admitting that he's at fault. So I'm like, do I even need to call my insurance company? Because they're going to handle everything.
They are going to handle everything under the first type of insurance, and that's liability.
Okay.
So you're supposed to have under Virginia law car insurance if you're driving a car. And so you've got liability coverage. That means if you're at fault, you are going to be responsible for what happened in the accident. And that's what you're thinking of. You're thinking, why am I even calling my carrier if the other guy had insurance, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the question is, how much insurance did he have? In Virginia, you're only required to have $25,000 worth of insurance. And that is why we need to know about your insurance, because you have insurance coverage that covers you in case that other person didn't have enough coverage to cover what happened in the accident.
So does that $25,000, does that cover just the car? Is that medical, or that's everything all in $25,000 full stop?
That's everything. And Now it seems like you're catching on here.
Yeah.
Because if you go to the emergency room and have a number of expensive tests, just the emergency room might cost $10,000. So what happens when you have a case, and it happens often, unfortunately, where the person comes in and the person at fault only had $25,000 in insurance, but they have $100,000 in medical bills. Here's what happens. The insurance company for the other guy writes you a check for $25,000. That's it.
That's it. You're done.
You're done with him. Unless he is independently wealthy or has a lot to go after, that's where you are looking at his policy and you call it exhaust that policy. So then we get back to the first question. Why did I ask you about your insurance?
Mm-hmm.
I'm asking you about your insurance because I hope you have more than $25,000. I hope you have more than the legal minimum, because anything that you have over $25,000 is now available as coverage for underinsured motorists. In other words, the other party had insurance, it wasn't enough, so they were underinsured. So let's say that you have $50,000 on your policy, or maybe you have $100,000, or hopefully you carry $300,000. Then we've got whatever that amount is, minus the $25,000 from the other party, because your insurance company gets credit. Then you have coverage, and you can feel confident that you're going to be able to recoup your costs, recoup the medicals, and recoup what you've lost in lost wages. The unfortunate thing is so many people come in with the legal limit. And when they have the legal limit, I don't have anything more to offer them, unfortunately, unless you happen to get hit by somebody who's wealthy enough that we could get a judgment against them and it would matter. You're just out of luck, and you're often limited to 25,000.
Once again, Chris, you're blowing my mind, and you're making me realize that I need to rethink my entire life here, because here's what I'll do. I'm just going to be brutally honest and admit it.
Okay.
What I do is when I get a new vehicle, I call my insurance company and I say, give me whatever my whatever my loan originator is requiring, and that's it. That's all I ask about. That's it. Then I'm done.
That's the legal minimum. So that's what the state has said you have to have. And the problem is you don't realize that you're insuring yourself against everyone else. So let's say, God forbid, you have a catastrophic accident. You don't want to be limited to whatever that insurance is. You need to have a significant amount of insurance, 100,000, 200,000, 300,000, $500,000. And when I tell people these numbers, they look at me like I'm crazy.
Yeah.
But I'm going to test you. After this podcast, I want you to call your insurance company and find out how much more it is to up what you have to 100,000 and 300 and 500. You're going to be shocked. It may only cost you $200 or $300 more a year.
That's
and
it.
That way you're going to have peace of mind, and you'll know that you and your family will be provided for in the event of a very serious accident. It's so much less expensive than people realize, but like you, they just don't give it any thought. It's something I've always had. Whatever I have, hey, Mr. Insurance Agent, just sign me up for whatever I've got. I got a new car, no problem. And you really need to look at it and give it some thought. It's very important.
Yeah, and I guess that's the thing. I've always thought of insurance and auto insurance in two ways. If I hit somebody, is that going to be covered? If somebody hits me, are they going to be covered? Have never thought about it in terms of me. And to be honest, I wouldn't expect anybody else out there to be carrying a higher liability coverage, right? They're going to carry the minimum. Nobody's going to be like, I'm going to carry a bunch more just in case I do more damage than that minimum.
Well, that's exactly right. Typically, the people who are doing that, they have a good insurance agent who's familiar with their assets and is trying to cover them. And that's why I say it's unusual that you're going to have somebody who has the state minimum who's worth suing. Because if you have a multimillionaire, he's covered. He knows he has a lot to lose. So he's got a strong policy. Or if you have a corporation and you're talking about a commercial vehicle, they have a strong policy, so you don't have to worry about it. It's the individuals that you need to protect yourself against, but you also need to protect your own assets. What if you, by whatever mistake, cause a very serious accident to someone else? You wouldn't want to be liable and possibly lose your property or have to declare bankruptcy, but you also want to be sure that you know that you have enough insurance to cover that. You know, that's your responsibility as far as I'm concerned, is that you want to be sure that you're out there driving and you know that you're protected in the event that you are a victim of an accident, but also if you've caused an accident, you know, look, I've got enough coverage that I can take care of whatever problem I've caused for this other person.
Wow, it's such an important perspective. Again, I'm thinking a minimums, least out of pocket up front, what is required. And you're opening up this whole new world of, okay, what are my assets worth? What do I want to protect? And what am I putting at risk when I set that liability at the bare minimum? I could be doing my family a huge disservice, or my assets, or whatever else.
Well, there's no question. I mean, what if you end up in a situation where you can't work for a year? And you, unless you have a disability policy that's going to cover you, you're going to be turning to your auto policy. And some people don't have health insurance. There's a million different reasons why it's important to take a close look at your insurance policy and know that you've got enough coverage, and give some thought to increasing it. A $500 increase over the course of a year is about $42. And that $42, I've had so many people come into me. I had a guy recently, and his dad said to him, "Don't worry, son. We've got good insurance. Even if the other people don't, we've got good insurance." but their good insurance wasn't good enough.
Mm.
It was pretty good. And I talked to the insurance agent. She was proud that she had convinced them to go over the state minimum, but they hadn't gone over it by much. And if they had more insurance, there would have been more to recover. There's no question about it.
And what is that balance? What if I'm saying I got a great medical insurance policy at work? Do I need to take that into consideration, or should I make sure that my auto policy is robust enough just in case?
But even if you're covered by an insurance policy, sometimes you have to pay back that health insurance policy depending on the type of policy you have. If you work for a large company and you're part of what's called an ERISA plan, you're going to have a repayment duty. So your repayment of your medicals could exhaust the available coverage.
Mm.
So to me, there's no circumstance that would justify carrying the state minimum unless you just set aside a big pile of money and you say, okay, well, in the event this ever happens, I can pay this out if I'm at fault, or I can count on this money if I'm not at fault. But most people aren't in that situation. That's why we have insurance. The state requires you to have it. And for whatever reason, the insurance industry, it seems like they just rather have more policies than make sure they have policies at higher amounts. And so most people have never had this conversation, never even thought about it.
Never. This is a first for me. I'm here and you're opening my world. When we're done here, I'm going to go through my policy and I'm going to talk to my wife and I'm going to make some adjustments, because I'm going to tell you, I don't even know. I don't know what my deductible is. I don't know, Chris. I just say, this is what my lender requires. And man, you're making me feel a little stupid, to be honest with you.
Well, I don't want you to feel stupid. I don't want anybody watching this to feel stupid, because there's probably a million things that I don't do right. But this is one thing that I know that I can tell you to make it. It's an easy decision. It's easy to get right, and you're not alone. I would say in the last 2 years, maybe one person knew when they called how much insurance they had. Wow. Everybody has to call. Everybody has to look up the paperwork. Everybody has to go online to their insurance company and figure out how much they have. And sometimes they're surprised and sometimes they're disappointed. The worst thing is to have this conversation that we're having right now and explain this when there isn't enough coverage.
After the fact, yeah.
Yeah, it's just terrible. And it would have been so little money up front. It wouldn't have made any difference really on a monthly basis, but they would have had so much more security. And that's what it's really all about, is making sure that in the event that something bad happens, you've got coverage to take care of you and your family, cover your lost wages, cover what you've lost, and help you to move forward.
So again, liability is in case you're at fault, and that's what you pay, and you need to be worried about that number because they could go after your assets if your policy doesn't cover enough. Underinsured is if their liability policy doesn't carry enough to cover it. Then it comes to you and your policy covers it. Do I have it right? Am I getting it right?
You're right.
Okay. And then what else?
What's the third kind?
Yes.
The third kind is uninsured motorist coverage. Unfortunately, even though the law requires it, some people are running around without insurance. Maybe they didn't pay their bill. Maybe they got canceled. Maybe they didn't even know they didn't have any insurance. Or sometimes you get a situation where they're driving someone else's car and they assume that there was insurance with that car and there isn't. And that works the same way as underinsured motorist coverage, except there's no credit because there's no insurance involved in the first place. But whatever amount you have is what you have available to protect you and your family and your wages and your assets. So those are the three main types. The number will be all the same on the policy typically. So if you have 100 on one, you're going to have 100 on all of them.
Mm-hmm. And again, so the recommendation is about the same for uninsured as the other ones?
Yes, they're all going to be set at the same number.
Okay.
Whatever number you choose, you will have for all three of them. So you're knowing that you're protecting yourself in the event that you're at fault, and they won't have to come after your assets or even consider that, or if you had to declare a bankruptcy because a huge judgment was entered against you. And then the underinsured and uninsured motorist, for someone who either doesn't have enough for the injury that was caused or doesn't have any at all, you turn to your own policy and you're covered, and they're all three at the same amount. So if you have 50,000, if you have 100,000, you have it for all three.
Okay. What a great education. Anything else that I should be considering when we're done with this recording and I go through my auto policy, probably for the first time in earnest?
The other type is medical payments coverage.
Okay.
Medical payments coverage is a type of coverage that's available regardless of whether you were at fault and regardless of whether the case has been brought to a settlement or they've reached a liability analysis. And what that does is cover people for immediate out-of-pocket costs, because a lot of people get caught in a bad situation. Their money was already tight. Maybe things weren't going as well as they had hoped. Then they get in an accident, and in order to get care, to get an MRI, to get physical therapy, they're having to come out of their own pocket either for copays or for the whole thing if they don't have insurance. If you have medical payments coverage, as soon as you get those bills, you can submit them to the insurance company and they'll repay you. And again, just like the other thing, it's so little on your bill. It might be $5 or $10 a month, and it can really be so valuable to have it there when you need it.
Yeah, I just love the whole thought, again, back to the original idea of insurance, preparing yourself for any eventuality and making sure that your family is protected, instead of my philosophy, which has been pay as little as possible to meet the standards and go on with my life. And I realize
you and everybody else.
Yeah, and I realize, man, I'm lucky I haven't had to tap into these resources and get this education after the fact.
That's the good news, is if we can get this out there, if people will see this, if it only makes one or two people give a call to their insurance company and increase their coverage, it'll be worth it. And I wanted to take an opportunity to have a podcast where I didn't bash the insurance company the whole time. I know my motto is never give a recorded statement. You can't trust them. They're going to jam you up. A lot of that still holds true, and I'm always going to feel that way. But they are there for you. You got to have the number there. You got to have the coverage there to give me something to work with. If you walk into me with a $300,000 case and $50,000 worth of insurance coverage, guess what you've got? A $50,000 case.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's all.
It's going to be one of the easiest cases we've ever had, because they see it's a $300,000 case. There's $100,000 in medicals, but all your coverage is 50. They send out 50. And then what I have to do is call the medical provider who's run up this $100,000 bill and say, look, there's only 50 out here. Can you cut it down? Can you cut us a break so my client can get something out of this case? It's a horrible situation. So if we can, even if you're the only one who's listening and you're the only one who gets better insurance, it'll be worth our time. That's for sure. But hopefully we're going to convince some folks.
Yeah, I'm going to definitely help you spread the word. And I do like the clarification, because we have talked a lot in the past about how insurance companies, they're a business. They're going to try and pay you as little as possible. But that's not, we don't want people to interpret that as don't get insurance. That's absolutely something that it is required, but you're helping us all understand that it's also needed, and it's the best way to prepare yourself for any eventuality.
If I'm telling you to pay the insurance company more, there must be a reason behind it, and it must be true.
I think that that's well said. Anything else you want to add to this very important discussion?
I think that's all for insurance, but just want to remind everybody, even if you have enough insurance, don't give them a recorded statement. Never give them a recorded statement.
Well, and we can go through those quick. So let's see how well I've learned. If I'm in an auto accident, I obviously want to get their insurance, right? I want to get a police report, see how I'm doing, right? I want to take pictures of the scene. See, I'm doing good, right? I want to see a doctor, right?
Absolutely.
And then I want to call you. How am I doing?
That's right.
Yeah.
You are my best pupil. I'm glad I'm getting through to you, because that makes me hopeful that we're getting through to some other folks too. That's absolutely right. That's what I want you to do.
Very good, Chris. I love it. I love that you're taking the time to provide this level of education. I think you're going to save people a lot of heartache and help them take advantage of the good side of the insurance industry instead of just always focusing on some of the negatives.
I sure hope so.
Fantastic, Chris. And his phone number is there on the screen if you want to reach out. He will be the guy answering the phone, so he will help you out. Chris, as always, it's a real pleasure.
Thank you. Nice to see you again.
Absolutely.